Senator Kennedy.
You can continue the conversation with me. I'm grateful for my friend and his sincere questioning. I want to just jump right in on some of the things that he brought up. And let's just talk about the worker safety rules that we've done for Americans. It's called OSHA. And there are certain things we've done that we think it's horrific if we don't do them to protect people from everything from the off-gassing of chemicals to, as you said, a printing press that might have unsafe features. When you go into prison, those basic worker standards that protect people from all kind of injury, do they apply in prison? Professor Armstrong.
So the general rule is we don't expect them to apply, especially for things that are happening behind the wire. Now, there are limited circumstances where a state, which has adopted its own OSHA Act, can in fact choose to cover. But even then, we see, according to research by the National Employment Labor Project, that those states have also made a choice not to cover incarcerated workplaces. And so it really does lead to this anomaly where the same activity, the same equipment is regulated when it's outside but not inside.
So what statutory protections in general are there for people that are behind bars when they're working?
Well, I don't think that we have a specific statutory protection, federal or state, for people who are working behind bars.
And so, again, I agree with some of the general statements of my colleagues that if you have done a crime, there should be a related punishment. But work in some environments, like Mr. Wynn was describing, where there's no regulation of heat, for heat exhaustion, for access to water or access to facilities, things that we would consider putting workers out in those conditions almost torturous to just a human being. That's why the advocacy that we're hearing is that there should be some kind of protections against that kind of extreme punishment. Is that right?
That's correct, and I would just mention two additional things. One is thinking about the provision of safety gear, right? And so, for example, there are cases where people have fallen off of roofs because they didn't have safety belts or toe holds or knee pads. And so thinking about not just what rules govern the equipment, but also are they being provided with safety glasses and safety gear? I think the other part of it is really thinking about the ways in which what we sentence people to. We sentence them to years, not particular injuries, and certainly not to amputations.
Okay, and Ms. Turner, I just want to say that you tried to say a few things. I just want to give you an opportunity to more fully respond, just for the record.
Oh, thank you.
To some of those issues. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Senator Kennedy raised the issue of wages. He also raised the issue of victims of crime. And their economic analysis by Edgeworth Economics and Worth Rises shows there's a true fiscal argument for paying incarcerated workers minimum wage. To pay them a fair wage would actually generate revenue over the long term. And it would benefit victims of crime who would be paid victim restitution. Currently, incarcerated people are saddled with debts for victim restitution. They're unable to pay back. When they're released from prison, maintain those debts and struggle to pay them back. If incarcerated workers are paid a minimum wage, they'll be able to pay restitution that will put money in the hands of victims of crime. It will also allow them to pay child support and support their families who are currently going into debt to support their loved one while they're incarcerated. It will allow incarcerated people to become self-sufficient and to have some savings to set them up for success upon release. Studies do show that some savings upon release sets people up for reduced success and reduces recidivism, allows them to gain stable housing, stable employment. That there, in addition, generates tax revenue when this income is taxed.
And Senator Cotton came off very common sense. Well, we make a minimum wage for law-abiding citizens, and they have to pay rent, they have to pay this. How do you respond to that, really what sounded very logical?
The reality is incarcerated workers are currently paid pennies per hour, and they don't even see that much. As much as 80% are deducted. And in the majority of states, room and board as one of those deductions. In the federal PICP program, in which incarcerated workers are employed directly by private corporations or paid a prevailing wage by law, it's a very small number of workers, but over 2/3 of their wages are deducted for room and board. The reality, too, is that incarcerated people are forced to pay incredibly extortionate sums to stay in contact with loved ones, to buy warm clothing, medication, medical co-pays, and these fees build up, and their family members who are already impoverished, who are struggling from the loss of the income from their loved one who's incarcerated, have to step into the breach, and more than half of them go into debt to support their loved ones.
Right, and that's what I wanted to clarify. I want to shift to Senator Durbin in a second, but that incarcerated people actually do are charged for rent.
Absolutely.
They actually are charged for numerous things on top of that, and should they be making a minimum wage, those charges now seem much more rational, yet at the same time, from sanitary napkins to telephone calls, I've been stunned on my visits to prisons how much it costs to buy a tampon in prison, a bar of soap, or to call a child. It's as you said, usury rates. And so this idea that paying minimum wage would be in some way giving them lavish resources is just not true. In addition to the fact that you are citing the evidence that from victim restitution, child support payments, and more, how many times, and I know this, where a man goes to prison and has children from a divorced or separated mother who has no help whatsoever and raises that child in poverty. I'm very grateful that I'm going to go back to, I will resume because I really, Mr. Nguyen, I thank you for enduring that. I want to give you some more chance to talk, but I do want to take a break for the chairman of the entire Judiciary Committee, and I'm grateful that he's here, and I want to let him have his questioning.
Thanks, Senator Booker, for this hearing, and thank all of you